In a world that is just completely saturated with noise, how do you get anyone to listen? I mean, how do you possibly cut through that constant barrage of information we all face every single day? Well, today we're diving into a really powerful strategy that the world's absolute top brands use to do exactly that. It's called creative angle hunting, and it's all built on something called differential logic. And listen, this isn't just about some clever marketing tagline. It's about fundamentally changing the entire conversation. So let's get into it.
This quote, it just perfectly nails the single biggest challenge that we're all up against. It has nothing to do with how good your product is or how real the problem you solve is. Nope, it's about a deep, pervasive boredom. Just picture your customer, right now, mindlessly scrolling. They see your ad, and in less than a second, their brain goes, ugh, I've seen this before. And just like that, you're mentally filed away and dismissed as another one. Another piece of software promising to save time, another agency claiming to boost ROI. You're completely lost in the noise before you ever even get a chance.
And that leads us to this really dangerous trap called competitive echo. You see, for decades, the old marketing playbook told us to just look at our competitors and do what they do, but, a little bit better. So we add a new feature, we knock a few bucks off the price, we tweak the messaging. But in doing that, we accidentally start sounding just like them. We start using their language, playing their game, and the crazy part is, in our attempt to stand out, we end up becoming just another voice in the echo chamber. Our message becomes so familiar that our audience's brains just filter it out automatically. We literally become invisible. This whole trap is fueled by something we call the betterment illusion. It's this flawed idea that just making small improvements, being a little faster, a little cheaper, adding one more bell or whistle, is how you win. But in a crowded market, those tiny advantages just don't matter anymore. Our brains are constantly looking for shortcuts, and they've gotten incredibly good at ignoring anything that fits a pattern they've already seen. So even if your solution really is better, if you talk about it in the same way as everyone else, it's just more static. You're not cutting through the noise, you're just adding to it. Okay, so this right here, this is the core idea of our whole explainer today. The real way to win isn't about out-marketing your competition. It's about outthinking them. It's all about reframing the problem itself. Because the person, the brand, who can define the customer's problem in a fresh, insightful way, well, they're the only one who really earns the right to sell the solution. This is a huge shift in thinking. We're moving from just trying to shout louder to trying to see clearer. And that right there is where creative angle hunting begins. But this way of thinking wasn't just dreamed up in some comfy boardroom. It was actually forged in a crisis. The whole discipline of creative angle hunting came about as a survival tactic for brands that were realizing, probably with a good bit of panic, that the old marketing rules just weren't working anymore. Let's take a quick look at the history here, because it's pretty revealing. So as you can see, the story really kicks off in the mid-2020s with what's now called the feature parity crisis. Basically, AI got so good that you could copy your competitor's entire product in a heartbeat. Any advantage you had could be wiped out in weeks. This meant all the products started to look identical. Then, a few years later, the data started rolling in and it showed something shocking. The better products were consistently losing to brands that were just better at talking about the problem in a new way. That was the moment everything changed, and creative angle hunting went from being a cool idea to a critical survival skill. This really just sums it all up, doesn't it? The entire game changed. It wasn't about being the best in a category anymore. It was about being the only one in a brand new category that you created yourself. In a world with too many choices, people weren't looking for tiny improvements. They were desperate for clarity, for someone to give them a fresh perspective that made their choice easy. Being unique suddenly became way more valuable than just being a little bit better. This new world demanded a completely different way of thinking. Instead of asking, how can we beat our competitors, the smart leaders started asking, how can we make our competitors totally irrelevant? The focus shifted from competing to just departing, from asking what works to asking what's missing. It's what we call category governance, the power to define the problem, set the rules of the game, and make your solution the only one that makes sense. Think about it. Instead of building a better mousetrap, you convinced people the real problem was never mice in the first place. So how do you actually do this? How do you achieve that level of differentiation? Well, it's not about getting lucky or waiting for a lightning bolt of creative genius. There's a system, a repeatable process called the Differential Logic Engine. In this next section, we're going to pull this engine apart, piece by piece, and show you exactly how it works to find those game-changing angles. Now, I want you to really get this framing. We are not talking about a simple brainstorming session here. The Differential Logic Engine is a rigorous analytical process. You really should think of it like a 4-stage forensic investigation. You're sweeping your market, your customer, and your own solution to find the hidden truths and overlooked opportunities that literally everyone else has missed. It's a system for finding your unique angle. Okay, so the engine has 4 distinct stages, and each one builds on the last to create this really powerful, almost undeniable case for your solution. We kick things off with category fatigue identification, basically figuring out what everyone's sick of hearing. Then we move into shadow benefit discovery, which is all about finding the amazing benefits of your product that you're not even talking about. Next up is the mechanism reveal, where we name the customer's real frustration. And finally, we establish the new standard, positioning our solution as the only way forward. Let's dive into each one. Stage 1, category fatigue identification, starts with a really radical move. Before you even think about what you're going to say, you have to find the primary frequency of your market. That's the one promise that every single one of your competitors is making. Go look at their websites, their ads. What words do you see over and over again? Streamline your workflow, unlock your potential, drive more revenue. Once you find them, you treat those words like they're radioactive. You ban them. This creative limitation is the absolute essential first step to finding your own voice. Okay, so once you've silenced all that market noise, you can finally turn your focus inward for stage 2, shadow benefit discovery. This is all about deep customer empathy, and it begins with one simple but really powerful question you have to ask your team, and even better, your customers. What is the one real result people get from using our product that we never ever talk about? You've got to look past the obvious features and really dig into the human impact of what you do. And the answer to that question? That's what leads you to your shadow benefit. This is that secondary, often emotional result of your solution. It's not about the feature itself. It's about the ripple effect that feature has on your customer's life, or their career, or just their peace of mind. This benefit lives in the unclaimed territory of your market, this wide open space that's all yours for the taking, because all your competitors are crowded around that same old primary frequency. Your breakthrough angle is hiding right there, in plain sight. Let's use a really concrete example to make this crystal clear. The primary frequency for almost all productivity software is saving time. It's logical, sure, but it's also a total cliché. It has zero impact. Now think about a shadow benefit, the end of the Sunday night anxiety. Wow, that speaks to a much deeper, more emotional pain, right? That dread so many of us feel as the weekend ends and a crazy week is about to start. Can you feel the difference? Saving time is a feature. Ending anxiety is a transformation. That's the power we're talking about. So once you've grabbed their attention with that powerful shadow benefit, it's time for stage 3, the mechanism reveal. This is where you shift from an emotional connection to an intellectual one. Your goal is to give them a new reason, something they've never considered before, why the old way of solving their problem is completely broken. You're trying to create that aha moment that makes them question everything they thought they knew. The key here is to give your customer a linguistic handle for a frustration they've always felt but couldn't quite put into words. When you name their pain, you're not just showing you get it, you're proving you're an expert. There's this incredible psychological thing that happens. When you can describe someone's problem better than they can themselves, they automatically trust you to solve it. You become the authority in their mind instantly. For example, you can name the enemy the complexity trap. This gives a name to that nagging feeling people have when they're overwhelmed by software with way too many features. And by naming it, you take the blame off of them. It's not that they aren't smart enough, it's that the tool itself is a trap. And that lets you position your simple, intuitive solution as the only clear escape. Or what about this one? The efficiency tax. This is brilliant. It names all the hidden costs of using those standard solutions, all the time, energy, and focus that's just wasted. It completely reframes the conversation. While your competitors are all talking about what their software does, you're busy revealing the hidden tax of not using your software. You're playing a totally different game. And that leads us to the final stage of the engine, establishing the new standard. You've called out the industry cliché, you've revealed a deeper human benefit, and you've named the real enemy. The final move is to present your solution as the new, obviously better way. At this point, your product isn't just another option. It's become the only logical path forward. You've created a new category, you've defined the rules, and you're the leader. But how do you know if it's working?
The key metric is something called angle resonance. And this isn't some vanity metric like likes or shares. It's a direct measure of how efficient your marketing is. When you find an angle with high resonance, you will see a massive, sometimes overnight drop in how much it costs you to get a new customer. Why? Because you're not fighting over the same audience as everyone else anymore. You're attracting the people who have been waiting for someone to finally speak their language. It's the data that proves you're breaking through.
So we've gone through the what and the how of creative angle hunting. But to really get why it's so powerful, we need to understand the why. What is it about this approach that just works so incredibly well on our brains? The answer, it turns out, is deep in the world of cognitive psychology. Let's dig into the brain science behind all this. The big idea here is something called schema disruption. See, our brains are lazy. They want to conserve energy, so they create mental shortcuts, or schemas, for things they see all the time. You have a schema for what a SaaS ad looks like. The second you see one, your brain recognizes the pattern and just tunes out. But a new angle, it completely shatters that schema. It presents information in a way the brain does not expect, which breaks the pattern and forces it to snap out of autopilot and actually pay attention.
You're essentially performing what you could call a neural bypass. The typical ad follows a path in the brain that's been walked a million times before. It's easy to process and even easier to ignore. But a differential argument carves out a brand new path. It bypasses the brain's automatic junk filter and forces it to engage. You're single-handedly moving your customer from being a passive filterer of information to being an actively curious participant.
And this is all supercharged by a cognitive bias known as the Bizarreness effect. Study after study has shown that we remember things that are unusual or unexpected way better than things that are correct but common. Now, this doesn't mean your marketing has to be weird. It just has to be distinct. A unique angle makes your brand memorable. It helps you pop out from that sea of sameness and make sure that when it's time to buy, you're the one they think of first.
So when you get right down to it, a differential argument does more than just get attention. It actually gives the customer permission, both intellectually and emotionally, to finally make a choice. By giving them a new, smarter way to think about their problem, you're giving them a real, logical reason to tune out everyone else and listen only to you. You're no longer just another item on a checklist. You are the only option that truly makes sense in this new world you've just shown them.
Okay, we've covered the history, the mechanics, and the psychology of creative angle hunting. Now it's time to bring it all home. This is where we turn theory into action. In this final section, we're going to lay out a clear, strategic blueprint that you can use to start applying these principles in your own business, like today. The whole process really boils down to these 3 steps. First, the fatigue audit. Go find and banish every cliché in your market. Second, engineer the shadow benefit. Talk to your customers, dig through reviews, and find that unspoken emotional benefit and make that your new headline. And third, implement the mechanism reveal. Give their frustration a name and show them how your solution is the only way out. It's a total mindset shift, from focusing on what's popular to relentlessly searching for what's missing. This quote is such a powerful gut check. Are we willing to be alone and correct, or are we just going to settle for being better and ignored? Taking the path of differentiation isn't always easy, but it is almost always the most profitable. The next time you're looking at a piece of marketing copy, just ask yourself one simple question. Could my biggest competitor have written this? If the answer is yes, you've got to go back to the drawing board. The goal isn't better copy, it's to govern perception. As we wrap this up, it's really important to see that this is so much more than just a bunch of marketing tactics. It's a whole philosophy of growth. It's about building a legacy of genuine insight and innovation, and fundamentally changing your relationship with the people you serve. I love this slide because it shows the 2 sides of the coin. On a purely logical business level, yes, this leads to better numbers, higher return on ad spend, lower customer acquisition costs. That's the math. But the real magic is in the human connection. A higher ROS is just proof that you've become a clear signal in a world full of noise. And a lower CAC, that's just a sign that you've made your customers feel, maybe for the first time ever, truly and completely understood. By finding and sharing a truly unique angle, you're doing more than just selling a thing. You're offering a new perspective. You're elevating your relationship with your customers from something purely transactional to something transformational. You stop being just another vendor they can choose from. You become a visionary, the one who's helping them see their own world in a new and more powerful way. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway. Real, lasting growth isn't a straight line you can just hack your way up.
It's a learned process. It comes from a continuous, humble commitment to understanding your customers, to challenging your own beliefs, and to always finding new ways to create real value.
Because when you get right down to it, the best marketing isn't about pushing people through a funnel. It's about pulling them toward value. It's about giving them a new sense of clarity, a more empowering way to see their world. And that is the true art and science of differential logic.